All right, back with you on the next round. Excited to have Nick Kelly on the show today. AL.com, a longtime writer, now the go-to guy for Alabama information in the area. Nick, welcome to the show, buddy. How you doing?
Hey, great to be with you guys. And man, with an introduction like that, how can I not be having a good Friday? So thanks so much for having me.
Hey, I know EG, you see her over at camp all the time, so I'll let her ask the first serious Alabama question of you. But have you had your fortune read with a deck of cards anytime recently?
You know, come to think of it, there was this one guy who did it in Atlanta, bald guy. I think his name was Jim, something like that. So yeah, it does ring a bell now that you mention it.
Yeah.
Let's give some context to that a little bit.
We were all I forget which day. I think it was a Tuesday night.
I don't know.
SEC Media Days, and we were all at the same hotel. And Nick stopped by with all of Taylor and Forrester and EG and I, and
poor Nick. He didn't know what he was getting himself into.
he sat down, and I had
I
had a deck of cards, and I started reading everybody's fortune with a deck of cards.
And if you're familiar with a deck of cards, that doesn't really work. So as Dunaway was aligning these cards and flipping different elements, if you will, he would tell us based on the suit and the number what our future was.
Yep.
Nick was awarded with an ace of diamonds.
Yeah, which means great prosperity coming for our man Nick.
So we said, when you're on the yacht, remember us. And he has now been dubbed our ace of diamonds.
I promised you guys, if that yacht ever happens, you're my first invite. So we'll make that happen, but I'm not counting on that being a tomorrow kind of thing. So I'll have to make sure I don't lose your numbers or anything by that point.
Well, we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, we will.
We'll stay in touch.
Don't worry, Nick.
Yeah, that's what that 7 of clubs was. We were part of a very tight club.
There you go. There you go.
Let's get into camp this week, Nick. Like Dunaway said, we're down there together, but obviously, we're in those media scrums, we're at practice, we're focusing on different things. So I'm curious, what was your biggest takeaway from these practice viewing windows that we got?
Yeah, as you know, it's not the most extended period of time, so making sweeping broad conclusions is maybe a little bit premature just from the two viewings we've had. But one thing that stands out to me, I watched quarterbacks the entire first day of practice, so that was about 15 minutes worth. And Ty just has a confidence about him. And Ryan Grubb talked about that on the second day of practice, saying that he had the best command that day. And you can just see it. I mean, he looks crisp. He looks just poised. And not that means that, man, this guy's on a fast track to the Heisman, but just in a little bit we get to see he looks the part. He looks like an older guy, and it makes sense. He's been there since 2022. He's been around the block, but you just can't help but feel that he knows what he's doing, feels comfortable, and we'll see how that translates. But that was probably my biggest takeaway from that early viewing.
You asked Ryan Grubb when he would have liked to have named a quarterback. That was your question, correct? And he said yesterday. So from your perspective, you've covered this team. You saw the Jalen Milroe era. What do you think is holding them back from naming Ty Simpson as a starter? And do you see that as a benefit to do so? And what should Alabama fans make of that?
I think Ryan Grubb told us why. It's because he wants to see it from Ty Simpson every day. I think Ty's had a great start to camp. There's no indication that he hasn't. But it's a matter of, can you keep doing it? Can you sustain? And that was something that Kalen talked about to the whole team.
Yeah.
That was his question to the whole team, because that was the issue a season ago, is Alabama had some really high, great moments, but they had some lows. They did not sustain. And it's tough to win every game. It doesn't happen most of the time. But at the same time, to have such peaks and valleys like Alabama did, they don't want to do that again. So that comes back to the quarterback competition. Can that guy continue to perform at a high level and just be consistent? And that's what they want to see from him. And I think that he can do that. It's just a matter of they want to see enough of that. And also, guys, the full pads have not been put on yet. That's happening this weekend. So to make the decision off of 1 or 2 days of, just maybe having helmets on, a little premature. But I think they do just want to make sure that this guy, whoever they pick, and again, all indications seem to be that Ty is on the fast track to be the starter week 1. They want to make sure that he's consistent, to make sure that he keeps stringing those practices together and really earns it. But there's no indication that he's been bumped, that he's been moved out of that top spot. So I'll be pretty surprised if he's not the starter against Florida State.
I won't embarrass you by comparing you to Cecil Hurt, because I know you're such a huge fan of the late great writer who covered Alabama for my whole professional life. But I used to love asking Cecil things just from my own knowledge, like, do you have a feel about this locker room, this team, their continuity? So I'll ask you that publicly here, not off the record. I'll ask you, you've seen a lot of locker rooms, and you had last year's locker room under Kalen DeBoer, and you've been around this team a little bit. Can you tell a difference in the leadership of this team yet? We're to the point yet where you've got a vibe about this group of guys and how they're blending together.
I can, and I would say it is different because it's not just it starts right now in fall camp. It really begins back in January when they start working out together, that fourth quarter program. You really sense that this group is at a spot where if you didn't want to be here, you would leave. And guys did, and that's fine. But so the guys who are here are bought in, and that's a cliche, that's a phrase you hear a lot, but they really are bought in because if they weren't, they had that year to look at Kalen DeBoer. They had a chance to see what this staff would be like for a year. And if they didn't want to be here, they could leave. And so some guys did, but the guys who did believe in this group, did believe in the ways that this team is building things, they stuck around. And no one left in the portal, as we well know, in the spring window. So, yeah, I really sense buy-in. And more than anything, it's familiarity. Kalen's talked about that on multiple occasions, how key familiarity and that continuity is. And I think that familiarity with each other, everyone is all in on this coaching staff. They stuck around. And I think that breeds that, all right, we're in the same boat. Let's row together, so to speak. And I can't believe I just quoted, I'm from Minnesota, so in an indirect way, I just quoted PJ Fleck and row the boat up in Minnesota. But in a similar way, they are in the same boat, and they're in this together. And so I think there's a sense of, hey, we all want to be here. We're working toward the same goal. And that just breeds togetherness. And that sounds cheesy, sounds cliche, but I think it's really the case of what's happening.
No, I agree with you, Nick. And like we've said, we get to kind of see that more because we are down there around this team. I was with Peter Burns and Chris Doering on SEC this past week. And one of the things that they brought up, CD said that he feels like Alabama is not being talked about enough, that there's almost a level of non-hype around this team, that they're not being acknowledged, whether it's the wide receiver room, the defensive backs. Do you agree with that statement?
That's probably fair relative to what Alabama has been in terms of the subject of college football. I think that a lot of people in our profession, you want things that are new and interesting, and Alabama was the thing for how many years? So I think it is at a point of, okay, who are the new contenders? Who else is interesting? Who's rising up? I mean, you look at a Texas Tech who's infused all that money into their roster and is trying to grow that. So I think that naturally new brings attention. But at the same time, I don't think Alabama minds maybe being a little bit behind the scenes because Tuscaloosa, Alabama has been at the forefront spotlight of college football for so long. So it's not surprising to me that it's happened a little bit just because Alabama wasn't as dominant last year, didn't make the playoff. But I don't think they mind that necessarily. So, yeah, I think it's a fair assessment that Alabama is a little underrated right now because, in my opinion, guys, Alabama's a national title contender, and would not surprise me to see them in that maybe Final Four and even in that final game.
Nick Kelly is with us, AL.com, all of his content there, video as well, podcasting as well. They do the same thing we do here now at AL.com. Alexander Chenard, trial attorney hotline. They even sponsor stuff like we do too over there, so you can go check it out. A lot of that content for free over there. You can get all their content at AL.com. This Alabama program, when Nick Saban was in charge, was a recruiting machine. Now it's a new world, and I think a lot of people did not think Alabama would be able to do what they have done in recruiting in this new world that we're living in. But they have done that. And I know you're close enough to know the reason why. Alabama comes across as not the top, not the Texas Techs of the world, not the Ohio State when it comes to spending. Why do you think Alabama is having success on the recruiting trail? Where does it start, and why do you think it's been such a hit so far?
Yeah, one thing that people forget about is, yes, this is a different staff, and that different staff has brought in new ideas and a freshness and different approaches. But the guy that people forget about that is still at Alabama is Bob Welton. He's the director of player personnel, and he's essentially kind of a deputy to Courtney Morgan, the general manager now. And he was essentially the deputy to Nick Saban, who was the de facto general manager during his tenure. And Bob has these relationships. I mean, he's got a great relationship with Ryan Williams. He's a really key guy to have in this state recruiting for you and involved in those meetings, involved in building those relationships. And so he is a carryover from the previous regime. And he's been really key in what they've been doing. So you have that mixed with this new staff, Courtney Morgan, who's highly thought of in the college football general manager space, and he and Kalen work well together. And so you have that combination of the old staff with the new staff, new ideas, and I think it's really worked. I think they've bought in, and I think it also, because Kalen DeBoer has had success other places, you can sell, hey, look at the receivers Alabama, Kalen DeBoer's produced at Washington. So you can get receivers to come. You can pitch the success that they've had before. And I also just get a sense of, you hear recruits talk about what Alabama's doing. They still like the energy a lot around this program and what Kalen is building in that building and that culture. And again, that's a cliche. And so part of me hates that I even said a cliche like that. But I do sense that the culture registers with a lot of the recruits. I also think the NIL infrastructure that Alabama is building, Greg Byrne is building with that whole group, has been smart and has been an approach of, okay, how can we make sure that what we do adapts and works in whatever changes happen in college football and with the College Sports Commission and just all these different rules and changes and house settlements and things like that. So I think that Alabama's been in a good spot of, hey, here's a perfect concept of how we can market you, how we can get you in front of people, how we can help a Ryan Williams get a Nike deal, how we can do things like that. So I think there is that proof of concept too of, it's not just, hey, here's a bag of cash. It's also, here's how we can market you, because it is more than just here's a paycheck. It's also growing your brand, making sure that you can get deals that is true NIL. And we talk about NIL like just cash, but name, image, and likeness, how guys can profit off that is key as well. And I think Alabama has been building that infrastructure to make sure they can adapt. And so I think that helps as well in that recruiting success.
Before we let you go, Nick, I do want to mention Ellis Ponder. He has departed and is on to CAA with Jimmy Sexton. You broke the story. I'm curious what that kind of process was like as you found that out, and what should Alabama fans make of this?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to an extent of, so Ellis had been with the program. He was one of those key people when, Nick Saban retires, Greg Byrne pulls people into a room and says, we need to keep this together and we need to make sure that, we work fast type of deal. And I'm totally paraphrasing there and just kind of more the energy of what that was than the direct quote. But Ellis is one of those key people because he knows some people on staff. He'd been running the program, and he'd been with the program for 15 years in a full-time role and was very much so an integral piece of the Nick Saban dynasty. I mean, he was Nick Saban's right-hand man by the end of it. And so Ellis stuck around for a year. He continued in that role with football. But after the season, he had actually moved over to the administrative side. So he was not in that football role anymore. So he was more working in administration. So I think it made sense for him to move on to something else and use kind of his skills and contacts in that way. I don't think it's a reason for Alabama fans to be worried. I mean, again, already he was not going to be working at football this season, so that wasn't a change. So I don't know that it's a panic button. I think it's just a good move for Ellis and just part of the nature of, you had these kind of holdovers that helped bridge the gap between the two eras, and then they maybe look to other things. And some guys may stay, like a Jeff Allen. He's back for another season, the athletic trainer. But some guys might do other things, like Ellis. And I think he had a good opportunity to join Jimmy Sexton, who's pretty much the super agent of college football agents right now.
Yeah, if you're joining agents, he joined either the Yankees or the Dodgers of agents right there. It works out really good. Nick, thank you for the information. We appreciate your time so much. We always enjoy your stuff, and we'll see you at the stadium or at a practice field soon, okay?
Hey, always enjoy it, guys, and great to be with you, and look forward to seeing you again soon, and hopefully maybe not too many card readings before too long. So.
Yeah. Well, keep that ace of diamonds close, man. It's coming soon for you.